Okay, for those on the live stream, welcome back to this evening's design review and documentation session for some software engineering functionality for the upcoming version of Wolfram Language. And when we left off, we were looking at network packet capture and related functions. So I think we just finished off doing our documentation of network packet capture, and next up we're doing network packet recording. And I think what we have from here on out, what we'll be doing is we'll be finishing off the network packets stuff, and then we will be working on external evaluate and web unit and automation of website stuff. By the way, a comment from the Twitch stream from earlier. Promiscuous mode typically requires super user rights to modify the network interface, and if Mathematica crashes, I'd like to ensure that the interface resets to whatever mode it was before that. Interesting.
Right. So as I mentioned in the Twitch chat, we won't ever enable or disable promiscuous mode. That's something that the user will have to do independently of Mathematica. So that's not something to worry about.
Okay, fine. All right, let's go ahead and look at, oh, by the way, network packet capture, I think we might, just for amusement, point to audio capture.
Sure.
Just because it's an analogous function. And that means I should go ahead and let me point back there. I mean, it's kind of weird, but the fact is, for example, for what we're doing right now on Zoom, you could actually see, weirdly, you can see our audio packets. And let's see, have we got, let me just check whether the audio recording function is in evidence yet. Ouch. Okay, and Carla, remember we are changing audio record to audio recording.
Yes, I'll track that down.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put network packet cap recording in the see alsos for this. It's a little bit far afield, but it's sort of interesting for people. Okay, so did you put in records information on networks packet or tool? Is this how we want to do it, as opposed to having two arguments here? Time and then the service?
We could have two arguments.
Let's see how audio record does it.
Sure. The last time we looked at this, you wanted it to be a list.
Oh, you know what? I think we agreed on how audio recording was going to do that. And I think we need to make sure that this is consistent with that, okay? So right now they have a max duration thing, but we're getting rid of that. Mm-hmm. It'll just be, and this is, this, by the way, should point to device, what is it called?
Device read time series.
Yes, device read time series. Okay, and this should also point to, I mean, this one wants to point to some of these other things here, like all of those, probably, all of those things in the middle there, right? Network interfaces, default network interface, host lookup, ping time. I can't see why they'd be any less relevant to this than that. Let's just see. Um, okay. And that's now, what's the analog of this here? Device, is there an analog of the capture? No, there isn't. There isn't an interactive device capture thing. Which, by the way,
Nope.
there perhaps should be. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess device capture would be the intuitive name, but I mean, it is a little bit different considering if you're going to have a device capture, it should work with any device object, and so then the first argument has to be the device object.
Right. But then it would give you an interface, and you would basically capture according to the time specified by the GUI. By the way, notice that the structure of this is a little different. Device, well, it's got to have the device first.
Right, that's what I was saying.
We really need to know how audio recording is working. Let's see, wasn't Carlo, there was a meeting today. What, am I confused here? Carlo Giacometti was going to be part of some meeting. Maybe that was a meeting that got moved from, maybe.
That'll be tomorrow morning.
Can you see if you can find him? See if he can join us here. He probably knows what the story is with audio recording.
I'll try.
He's West Coast based, so I think he's around. Okay. Okay, the rest of this is all identical.
Yeah, I mean, just replace record
Okay.
capture with
Right.
recording. Yeah.
Let's go to dollar network interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, network interfaces are specified. Network interfaces are specified by device, but specified by strings corresponding to the Unix device. Is that correct? Is it like dev en0? Is that the?
No, they're not.
No, they're not
dev
devices.
No.
Okay. Are specified by strings.
They're not. I mean, you can say something such as en0, yeah, on Unix devices. It's something different on Windows.
What is it? What kind of a thing is it on Windows?
I mean, it's like wireless network number 1 or wireless network number 2 or
Okay.
some generic thing like that.
By string names such as. That's not relevant. That's not what we would say here. Okay, so then we want to refer this to network packet capture. What about system information? Does it have any of this information in it? It probably should have. If it doesn't, it should have.
Okay, I don't think it does, so I'll make a note to add that.
Right, somebody should put that in. It's hardly high priority, but it should be put in. Network packet recording. System information. Anything else this should refer to? Let's take a look at the appropriate guide page. see where system information. Let's look at my thing here. Okay. System setup. Let me see. Who from the audio team? Let me just think. I'm trying to think of who we can. Apparently, Carlo isn't available. Who else is in the audio team who would be available at this time of day? Humph.
Yeah,
We're going to have to pick this up tomorrow, unfortunately, that thing about audio recording, because we need to make sure that's consistent.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so
what I was saying is that up towards the top, under where it says dollar version, dollar system, I think, yeah, somewhere in there, right? Because it's a very similar thing.
yeah, system capabilities, but where is? Oh, device. What's that? Device finding devices. What's that called?
Find devices. Function is just find devices.
What's dollar services?
Integrated services, that kind of thing.
Okay. Let's see. We should probably have this under. This is probably under hardware configuration. It's probably a separate section here. Where should that go? I think that should go at the bottom here. System hardware configuration. And that would contain what is the thing for controllers for that definitely contains find devices.
Yeah, it's like a one second, I'll try and find it. It's a function. Okay. So yeah, it's just controller information.
You know what? I'm not going to put default network interface here. I'm just going to do that. Okay. And this will want to be covered also on the page about network. Actually, let's do that right now before, and then we still have default network interface to document. Let's go to the page. Let me just look. Okay. Let's go to the page about network. So let's go to wherever host lookup is included. Network programming seems rather relevant to this. Reading from sockets, writing to sockets. Okay, so where would we include this? Packet.
I think it might even actually need its own section. I don't know if we have an appropriate section here.
Well, we've certainly got utilities here. No, we want a separate section.
Yeah, a separate section, I think.
By the way, $network connected is highly relevant.
Oh, yes, we should include that in CLSOs.
I don't know whether that's on that page about system information. What's pingable queue? Do we keep that? No, it's not really there. I think we decided that wasn't interesting. And by the way, did we keep URL response time?
I mean, somebody might be working on it. It's not in master. So.
Okay, there's another very important thing that's here, which is $machine addresses. Right?
Yeah, some other dollar sign that might be relevant is dollar audio input devices, dollar audio output devices.
Okay, hold on. And we also got cameras. Just a second here. Okay, $network connected. So this, and under machine addresses, we definitely want $network interfaces. And we also, I think, by the time we're talking about machine addresses, you might as well have network packet capture here also. Because by the time you care what your machine address is, you might care about that. Do you agree or do you not agree?
I agree. I think network packet capture is logical to have on machine addresses.
Okay, requester address. Is that?
That only works in the cloud, like for an API evaluation.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. What about the socket stuff, pointing the socket stuff to the packet, to these network?
I would say maybe socket listen.
Okay. Pointing for network packet capture.
Yeah, I think maybe both ways. Socket listen to network packet capture and the other way. Because that might be useful. You know, you start an asynchronous socket listen, and then, you know, you're doing some web server thing and you want to see all the packets that are transmitted. And that will work without any stuff that doesn't exist right now.
Okay, socket listen. So let's point socket listen back to network. How are we going to make sure that this device capture thing gets discussed? Who's that for? Is that for Igor?
I would say for Igor, yeah.
Okay, so Carla, can you take that?
Sure.
Maybe we should remove audio capture from here. What do you think? Is it too irrelevant?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty relevant. I mean, it's the same kind of capture interface.
Yeah, so is image capture. So is, you know.
Well, yeah, I suppose they are. I don't know. I could see it going
okay. It gets one a little bit of the way there. All right, fine. Okay, let's see. Where were we? We were on. So URL response time does exist. That seems relevant. Is it relevant to network packet recording?
I mean, it's relevant insofar as, you know, anything that is URL related.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the guide page here. Network programming, wherever it was. Okay. So host lookup, time constrained. Okay, so let's have a separate section here called network packet capture.
Do you want to just maybe call it network packets, or do you want network packet capture? Well, let's think. What is this called? This is called, let's call this low-level network operations. And then let's say capture information on all packets. And now we have network packet recording. I think we need to have sorry, what was the thing here? In addition to these, we want, let me see. I was thinking, oh, what was I thinking here? Oh gosh. Let's see. And I think we could just put that there. What was I just thinking? That we're looking at network connected. By the way, network connected should surely point to network packet capture because, or network packet recording, because if you really want to know whether your network is doing anything, look at the packets. See what I'm saying? Yeah, no, I agree.
I think network packet recording is probably the more useful thing there. Oh, I was thinking URL response time. Is that relevant to? It's sort of relevant to the network packet business because it is relevant because you can see what the actual response time is. You can see stuff go out and come back, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't thinking very hard last time, but it makes sense insofar as, if you're doing kind of network debugging kind of things, you want to see what the response time to a website is, and maybe you want to see the actual packets that, get responded to. I mean, yeah, it's very much a network debugging kind of thing.
That comes after ping time. We're putting in Okay, so now let me actually just see that in action. So if I say URL response time of, oops, so that would be www.wolfram.com, right? Actually, so let me do this. I'm just curious whether this works, and this would not be a bad example to use. So how would I do? So if I say, how am I doing this? How do I get this to show me these packets going out during the time that I've got my network packet capture happening?
Right. So I mean, the real thing, I mean, the real way you do this is you do, a submit. You do a submit of network packet capture, then you'd run your URL response time, and then you do like task finish result.
Okay. So why shouldn't I have session submit?
So,
well, what is it called? I want to do a local evaluate, right? Which is which
local.
will do it. No, what I want is something which is like. By the way, if I do, I want to do it in a local sub process because it doesn't really make any difference where this is happening, right?
Yeah, I would do it I mean, the way to do it right now would be local submit. You do local submit of network packet recording of say, 5 seconds. I mean, I doubt it would take that long, but
okay, and then what?
so do you just evaluate that and then do URL response time, and then do %18 of evaluation result or something?
Oh, come on! The thing has died.
Well, I mean, I feel like you should still be able to get. Well, so okay, so I guess you'd have to do it through handler functions. I feel like you should still be able to get the result.
Yeah.
That seems wrong.
It seems wrong, yes. I mean, it seems like you should be able to do a local evaluate just like you can do a cloud evaluate.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you could do something like that. Submits. Let's look at the C alsos. Yeah, I mean, look, one way we could do it. Could we do this? Let's try this. Oh my God. That's pretty wild. What's about to happen is deeply wild.
Yeah. I mean, so I have
probably eating my machine alive.
I did test it and it should run in parallel. You'll get very similar data sets because you can actually be capturing multiple on the same interface. It will not be exactly the same.
No, it won't.
Data set, but it'll be very similar, overlapping at least.
By the way, that's probably what you should use for neat examples for network packet recording.
Mm-hmm.
Is parallel evaluate of those things.
Okay.
What is that? VNIC1. What is that? Who knows? That is interesting. That is some kind of interface that has nothing to do with. I bet that's some kind of internal interface on the machine. Is that convincing?
The VNIC, I think, is something to do with like a virtual machine.
Yeah, right. But it probably has to do with the fact that we're running on 12 cores here, and it has to send the data to. So if I take %21 sub 1 sub 1, who knows? What is that port? What is that stuff?
Well, it's going same port.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what that is. I'm just going to look it up for 1 second.
Actually, yeah. So that could be MathLink.
It's a virtual network. Okay, well, anyway, you could point this out to Roman. He might actually find it useful.
Mhm.
Anyway, that is definitely a way to get a parallel. I suspect if I did parallel evaluate on these parallel kernels, so I wonder if I can just say number one, for example, by the $kernel ID. This is 0. So I suspect if I just say comma 1, yeah, I can do that. That would be how I would do this. This is kernel ID 1, and this is how I would do it. I would just say network. Look, I could do this, comma 1, and then that semicolon URL response time, right? And I claim I don't fully understand how this will work. Let's say that's 2 seconds. Something really weird is going on. I'm not sure this is doing the right thing. I'm not sure this will work because I'm not sure it dispatches those. Yeah, okay. Oh, what's that? It's a loopback link. Wow, this is more exotic when we do this parallel evaluate. We get some much more exotic things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of that network activity is actually mathlink, right? Because, there are various, you have to start the connection and then send the expression and things like that, and then it'll have like keep alive type things.
Yeah, this is super interesting. I mean, this should be given to the yeah, okay. Anyway. All right, let's keep going here. So we have to loop back, talking of loop back links to the guide page here, but had we finished, we haven't done default network interface here. And then we needed to finish that guide page, correct?
Yeah.
The system information guide page. Okay, this one. Okay. Gives the default network interface used on your machine. All the system info gives okay. So this probably has many fewer of these things. This is probably, let's take that, we'll edit it down. Okay, so we've got $network interfaces, network packet capture, network packet recording, and $network connected. And I guess that's okay. We can have system information there. Okay. All right, let's go back over here to, what's the relevance of machine addresses? Seems like it should be referenced on the network interfaces thing. Seems relevant.
Yeah, that's logical.
Where should it be in the list?
I would say After network connected.
That was exactly where I was thinking. Okay, dollar machine addresses. Okay. Default. Okay. All right, let's go back to our guide page over here. Where do we have machine addresses? Do we have that on here? We do not. Well, I think we should have a section here called network.
Network information.
Yeah. And that should contain dollar machine domains, I think, the machine domains, dollar machine addresses, well, the very first thing here is dollar network connected, which I don't think we had anywhere here. And dollar network interfaces, I think. And I think we could skip this here. Okay. All right, I think that's okay. All right, anything more for this documentation?
I mean, we'll have to resolve the record thing with some audio people.
Yep.
I think that's it. So you looked at the $ network stuff. We looked at.
Actually, on this list here, we probably should list machine addresses and machine. Since this is about network programming, you kind of want to know what your machine address is, don't you? You might want to know what your machine address is.
It would be useful. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So let's put it under low-level network operations, or should we put it up here?
I really don't know. Maybe, I mean, if we have dollar network connected under low-level network options, I guess that's a logical place to put it as well.
Okay. Dollar machine domain and dollar machine addresses. Okay. Okay. I didn't do anything to that, did I? Did I? Unless we want to reference network packet capture, but I think that's far afield from device read time series. I actually would like to reference audio recording here. That seems much more relevant. Actually, but probably both audio recording. Okay. By the way, we should make sure that in the Raspberry Pi specific information that we have, I wonder whether this is worth putting in that on that page now that I think about it.
Putting
the network packet capture stuff.
Yeah, I think people would find it useful to run on Raspberry Pi.
Where can we put it here? Connected devices. Let's have a section here called network programming or network analysis. I wonder what other things we should include here. If we're going to we can just list a bunch of the relevant functions here. What should we list?
I would say socket listen would be one of them. I guess network packet recording or capture, whatever. I'm not sure what you view as more cool.
Any others here?
Maybe channel listen. Channel listen and the channel framework stuff is under network programming guide. So.
Okay. And let's point this at the network programming. There it is. Okay. It's useful, I think. All right, onward. Okay, I think we got a new topic. Is that right? What is our next topic?
So the next topic is external evaluate with web unit.
Okay. Okay.
So again, it should be an external. It should be working. There is.
Okay, and is there documentation? Where's the documentation?
Okay.
It doesn't have a custom page.
So I've been working with Brady Martin and the docs people about making a new. I can send you the one that I made for Python.
Okay. Well, is it in the source?
No, it's not in CVS yet. I don't think they have finished setting it up yet. But I can just send you by mail.
Fine. Fine. So then show me. Okay.
Just one second. Okay, I just sent the mail. So yeah, so we're working on getting that doc page, fleshed out. The sections in that page are both basically done, and I can I'll send you this kind of example commands I have for the web unit stuff. So right, it's just very similar to the import format page, you have kind of like a general information section.
But I shouldn't edit this, right? Because I got Python is uncapitalized there. But we also need a bunch of stuff about what data types it supports, right?
Yes. Do you think that should be another, like its own section, like data type, like similar? There's an options section.
I think so. I mean, I think it's going to be useful
Okay.
for every language. I think it's going to be just a table.
Okay,
But
yeah,
I
we
think-
can have one added.
Okay. All right, let's see if I can actually operate this thing. So this is an X kernel, right?
Yep. So just first thing, I would just try running find external evaluators. You'll probably see a bunch of messages, but it should still work.
And it didn't.
Uh,
Oh, yes, it's doing something.
There should be a big data set. So if it's formatting that data set, or did it just die? It might have just died.
I think it just
Oh,
died. It crashed.
Okay, is this the only X kernel you have?
I don't know.
Okay.
But can I find external evaluators with a more narrow set?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can try just doing Python, find external evaluators of Python. But I mean, if the main thing crashed, I feel like the sub ones will crash as well.
It beeped and crashed, I think. Hey, what's it doing here?
I think it's probably crashing in some. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's crashing.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I have an older. I can also try the Mathematica instead of Wolfram Desktop Xkernel build and just see whether that does any
Yeah,
better. You are very loud typing.
Yes, I have a mechanical keyboard. I apologize.
I don't even know what that means. You mean like a typewriter?
No, the physical keys are
Move.
these these big switches that are quite loud. Okay, that's
Okay,
yeah.
so that did the right thing in some generalized sense of right thing. Okay, so now what you say is I try the same thing with what? With WebKit, WebUnit, what's it called?
So, well, as per your instructions, it's now WebDriver dash Chrome, for example. Okay, that's kind of what I feared. So I think it's only.
By the way, you should change that message, not a known system in the external evaluate framework.
Right, make a note of that.
I mean, it's cool to call it the external evaluate framework, but the only place we call it that is in the error messages, which is a little weird.
Well, so one of the purposes of this is we want to document the actual framework so people can write their own.
Right. I understand. Okay, so why don't you show this to me on your machine?
Yeah, let me.
And then you ready?
Yep, it's my screen here.
It's just a big gray blob right now. I'm just seeing.
I can see it.
It says
Oh,
I'm
I
sharing.
can now see it. Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the WebDriver thing, we have WebDriver-Firefox or WebDriver-Chrome, and it works. So one of the new things that we're adding is we're adding another key for how to specify the system that's session options like this. And right now the only option I have is this headless argument. So if I just run
Wait a
this.
minute. What is session options relative? Is that session options that would be? I'm confused here.
Okay, so session options is different. What that means is this is an option to starting the session. So not necessarily something that's evaluated, like how it's being evaluated, but how you start the session.
I understand, but I think that isn't that a piece of the start external session thing. Why is it hidden? I mean, do we have other options that go along with the name of the external evaluator?
Yes. So for example, you could do you know, version goes to, you know, 2 or
Okay.
whatever path. And these are all just shorthand of the full association.
And the full association has a session options key. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do we want to, I mean, in the case of headless, it seems to me that's a very different proposition, a headless thing from a headed. I mean, I would have thought that it would be WebDriver headless Firefox or something, because I think it's really a different thing from a Firefox that's, you know, moving stuff around in your screen.
Well,
show me what the headless one does.
Okay. So here's, you know, here. So this is what it looks like when you don't use headless. So, you know, I can docu tools out of the way so you can see that.
Why don't you make your window smaller? Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Oops. You know, if I do.
What did you just do? Okay, open web page.
Yep. So we'll do.
Why do you have to put a list on the right hand side? You should.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a part of you know, any list of arguments. But
right, but so
yeah,
fine.
it should. So, yeah, you're right.
It should deal with a single string. Can you make a note of that?
Yes. Okay. Yep. So it opens here. This should be returning null. Ignore the return value there.
Wait a minute. What should it be returning? Hold on. What does external evaluate usually return? Answer: it usually returns the actual value. I mean, couldn't it return something more interesting from open web page?
I mean, what is the value when you open a web page? Like, what does that mean?
I don't know. What does the WebDriver function return?
I mean, it doesn't return anything. Like it's. I mean, because there's not like a return value. Most of these external, or most of these WebDriver operations aren't, you know, something. I mean, there's a few. You know, I could do, you know, for
like
example,
what?
page. So yeah, 1 second. So I could do page title. That failed. Not sure why. You could also do current or capture web image. I think. Sorry, let me just capture web page. Forgot the name of these. And that'll give you, you know, an image of this, right? Fairly large one because I have a high res monitor, but you know, here's your.
So wait a second. So that is analogous to our screen capture business, but that will do that. Wait a minute. That's just for the visible region of the web page. That's not for the actual. That's not the full rendered web page. That's just the visible region.
Yes, it's exactly like, you know, our current screen image, because it just shows you what is visible on that part of the screen. Now, you could do something like, let me see if I have this. So you can change the size. Yeah, I don't think that's working right now. But so you can change the size of the browser programmatically, and so you could set it to be, you know, something gigantic, and then run this, and then you get a gigantic image. So this is what it, you know, how it works.
The WebKit thing, doesn't the WebKit thing have a full render of the whole web page?
It might. I haven't seen a function exposed that does that.
Okay. All right, but where's the list of functions that you are exposing? And by the way, that page title thing, is that?
I think it's actually web page title. Looking at my.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the URL, for example? Are you? I mean, or is that?
Well, I mean,
how does this correspond to? So one issue there is that we have this whole web page mechanism for cloud deploy that is supposed to be building web pages. It would be really nice if these things agreed in the building, right? In the what is it? In appearance rules for cloud deploy, you can
Right.
give page titles and so on, right? So those should agree with what you get back from
Okay.
the creature.
Yes. Yes.
We should go look up what those I don't think that's where you're going to find it, but go ahead.
Didn't you just want me to open this doc page?
No, I think that the appearance rules, we're using that for cloud deploy for web pages, as I recall. Just saw a nice example of this. All right, let's not there's something where we have a convenient set of a convenient association that we set up to represent the elements, symbolically the elements of a web page. And what I'm saying is we should make sure that we make those agree with what we're doing with the WebDriver thing.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So you're saying, for example, instead of web page title, this would just be like title.
I'm thinking, yes, probably.
Yeah. That does agree.
Or at least we should allow cases where to make that agree. Okay, so let's keep going. So again, where's your list of possible commands effectively?
Okay, I just opened that up. Yeah, so we have things like JavaScript execute, locate element, click element, type element, hide element.
Oh boy. Okay. Have you started documenting all of this stuff?
So yeah, we actually do have documentation. Not perfect, but close to.
Let's see.
Stuff like.
And those names are coming from the names of JavaScript.
Oh, that's.
What is installed?
There.
What was that about? Is that part of the system install structure?
No, sorry. No. That's wrong. I think there's a few of these that I forgot to update. So that's probably it. No, these are all wrong. Why are these all wrong? Sorry.
I don't understand what these are. Are you suggesting that there are individual pages for each of these commands?
So what I'm saying is there should not be individual pages.
But so what's the plan? The plan is to have one page for WebDriver-Firefox?
Yes, there's one page for, the WebDriver.
I mean, is that going to be confusing?
I think it'll be enough, right? And then we just have, a big.
So it's just a big table.
Yes, a big table.
These things are mostly one-line descriptions. There's not going to be something with a whole elaborate story about what it does.
Yeah, for the most part, like open web page, like that's very straightforward. Web page title. A few of these, like the locate element and type, those kind of things.
What does locate element do? I mean, does it return some weird DOM thing?
Yeah. So it's used to find if you want to find the search bar in your.
Can I see what it returns? How do we represent the DOM element?
Yeah, let me see what. It might be easier if I just because not all of these things I exposed in external evaluate yet, so I think I have to. So if I do, ignore some of these commands I'm evaluating. I just want to, because I don't remember what it returns.
I mean, these things are not totally silly. It's not obvious why we would want to hide all these things inside external evaluate of a Firefox driver. I mean, open web page does seem like a fairly useful function, similar to system open. Okay, keep going. I want to see what it returns for the DOM element.
I don't remember what. I think it was. Chrome that works. There's different ways.
Chrome.
Yep.
But that session ID is what? That's some kind of
That's
internal pointer inside the web driver?
Yeah, this is some big internal number that no one is ever going to want to actually see. I mean,
that's
it's
somehow you'll have your own UUID that maps.
Yep.
Okay.
But for example, this is it's some random thing that Chrome uses to track IDs. And so with whatever this is, I could go and then say, I mean, so actually, locate element is a bad example because I can just do. I'll move this so you can actually see a type. Actually, we have to click on the element first, and then we can type it. But if I do nav search, and then I do type element. I think I have to do. No. Oh, right. No, because these are oh, yeah, sorry. So this is actually a different thing.
What is? You mean it's different after you've
DOM
element?
When you click on it, there's a different. Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
Okay, so look, this thing that's coming back has got to be represented as some kind of external object thing.
You mean this kind of like ID type thing is what you're saying has to be external, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry. By the way, we have a comment from the live stream from Michael Hale saying a few years ago he used Phantom.js from within Wolfram Language to make renders of full web page, a whole page full scroll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so Phantom.js and actually the thing that we're using are basically just wrappers around the same thing. I think that we just didn't see the API for the full scroll basically of a web page.
Okay, fine. So that's just a separate thing. But what I'm trying to understand is this is very nice that you can get this element, but this should be represented as an external object, just like some random pointer that comes back from some other language. Mm-hmm. Don't you think? I mean, don't we have a pattern for external object?
Yeah, we don't have an external object yet. That's not. I mean, it's on the to-do list, but it's not a thing yet.
I think a thing, yeah, we should make it a thing because that's a fine example of an external object. And to me, that external object should have, I think it should be some association that says what type of thing it is that we can display symbolically in the language and that contains the raw information inside. Okay, so the raw data or or raw, I don't know what you want to call it, but then this external object has to be associated with that specified external session object, right? It's an external object of an external session. Yeah, and then that wants to have a summary blob that says what kind of a thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now if we do that, then this will look quite nice. I mean, if you say, now I'm a little concerned that the actual syntax of that locate element thing, let's type in what that looks like now. So that would be an external evaluate of S, comma, and then what would it be? Quotes locate element.
Yep.
Arrow. And then what is that actually going to be? Underscore nav search? Or what would it actually be? What's the ID thing there?
So the ID thing is actually this. There's also, which is kind of unfortunate. I have this. So there's all these other there's this XPath. There's a CSS selector, element class name. all these kind of like different things that could be in an HTML web page.
Okay.
And ID is, I think, the most common one. And I would be fine with just making the decision that, this nav search is what it defaults to. And if you want to do something else, say, you have another argument where it's like, XPath.
No, I don't like that because that's the type. I mean, if this was a proper symbolic thing in our language, there would be some wrapper that says XPath.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And so what we have to do is emulate that here as best we can. I mean, I think the most natural way to do it would be a quotes ID arrow nav search. Well, there is the key name ID. And you can put it in the association if you want. ID arrow nav search. Just like you could say XPath arrow that thing. I mean, I think that's that's probably the least grotesque way to do it. And we could have a default if you want to, that the locate element, that means that the documentation for locate element is going to be slightly complicated because it's going to have to say locate element.
Accepts all these different things.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, perhaps we will have a more cooked version of this. I mean, depending on how, I just don't know. I don't know how stable this kind of interface is. I mean, it somehow reminds me of the, I don't know why it reminds me of this, but it reminds me of the printer driver stuff that we didn't add in 1987 to, which would be really humorously archaic in today's world. So I just don't know whether this is okay, but so I think that's the right way to do this. Obviously, you can leave off the curly braces, and probably you can leave off the association wrapper there. But having the possibility that you can specify, So okay, so this is. Well, it's not. I mean, it's not beautiful, but it's not totally grotesque.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the thing I would be most worried about is for the 11.3 timeframe, I think making this into a summary box thing, I think is a lot.
No, I agree. But let's look what we can do. Even if you don't make it into a summary box, I think just returning it would be useful.
Okay, fair enough.
Just wrap it without
making it in an Earth thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I mean, returning that 0.0, 0.88, whatever it is. I assume that's a string.
Yeah, well, it's. I don't know why this is so weird. I've never seen a.
Well, it's some junior version of UUID.
Yeah, in Firefox, it is a UUID. Chrome is like this weird thing where it's,
Well, probably somebody thought it was a good idea to have it be shorter because they weren't going to have that many. I mean, I have no idea what that is.
Who knows?
But okay, but in any case, what other symbolic elements are there that come back out of this? So
okay, let's see, things that could be returned.
Well,
so
go ahead.
So for some browsers, not all browsers support this, is you can make new windows. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
Okay. By the way, the type that you listed under external object, is it really document ID? What are those things called? They're elements of the DOM, aren't they? It's not a document ID. I mean,
yeah.
And by the way, the object itself is not an ID. The object is I don't know what it means, web page element or something. I don't know. What is it? It probably has an official name, which some JavaScript enthusiast would really know.
Yeah, I don't know the exact
name.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if I can find.
Well, here let's but the type of that is going to be maybe a web page would be another type, which is your whole window thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to know what happens. Okay, so you've got all these commands here. I want to know what happens with the headless thing.
Okay, yes. So right. So this is what I have for now, right? Normally, when I specified this Firefox, we had the window came up. It shows up here.
Yep.
Now if I do
headless, the window doesn't show up. But what do you actually do? I mean, is it as if there's a off-screen frame buffer or something that is?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So I can still do.
I see. So really, the only difference is
it just doesn't display, which is why I thought it would make the most sense as a session option, because it's literally exactly the same. You just launch it headless instead.
Let's just think about use cases for a second, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because the headless case, I mean, if you want, for example, a picture of a web page, which I assume I thought we were going to have something called web image, right? Just like we have web image search, we were going to have web image that simply gives you
an image of that web page.
Yeah, what is that?
What is what? This?
The thing you just did, capture web page. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to implement this, it would literally be like two external evaluate commands.
No, I understand that, which is, but that seems useful. I mean, yeah, I mean, except that we got to deal with this issue. What are we doing? So for screen cap, we've got notebook capture and we've got screen capture, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Current notebook image. And that's that notebook, right? Nice and recursive. And then we've got current screen image,
mm-hmm.
which is, but now we got current screen image pointed at that notebook object, right? Which would only give the visible part of that notebook.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So if I run this again, we don't see the entire thing.
Yes. Okay. But so the function, I mean, again, this post 11.3 here, but the function web image or web, I mean, I guess, let's see. We have web search and web image search. I guess this is web page image. I guess. Okay. It's a little funky because we don't have functions. I mean, usually we would say things like, import from a URL, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, what the heck is this? I mean, this is some weird other thing because otherwise, well, we have URL read, right? And we have URL execute.
Maybe and this is,
what's that?
I mean, I was going to say, maybe this could just be hooked up into an import format where you give it a URL and it returns you.
I think that's even more bizarre.
Okay.
Because, that's usually import just brings in a bag of bits and tries to sift through them and turn them into something reasonable. And that's not, well, yeah, okay, you could argue that's exactly what this is doing, except that's not how it works because...
Yeah, not at all how it works, yeah. Totally different.
But arguably, that's what it's doing because it's bringing in, well, that's interesting. I mean, so your point is, that's interesting. Okay, maybe we should I'm just thinking what, I mean, the other thing, look, this is in the URL read, URL execute family, I would assume, because what URL execute does is it brings back the result of executing that URL, right? And this is bringing back some rendered version. Yeah, I mean, I guess what it is, yes, that's right. This is, you're right, that it's not that different from import. And URL execute, can you just look up URL execute? Okay, that's the format option for URL execute, format argument for URL execute. And format? That
yeah.
Is the one used by import. So I'm beginning to warm to your idea.
Yeah, I mean, it is like, in implementation wise, it's nowhere near the same thing. You never see the HTML or the bytes or anything, but it is conceptually.
Right, okay, let's put this on the list post 11.3. Is Carla still with us?
Yes,
I think
I'm
so.
still here.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's come back
So then the
Okay.
question, original question is headless.
Right. I mean, someone points out on the live stream that adding headless to the name of the thing.
Yeah, it does make it very
Okay. The only argument for that is just like with Python, for example, we're adding the name of the library and things to be part of that.
Yeah. So for example, we have pi numpy.
Whoops.
Oh, whoops. No. Oh, pi numpy. That's not right. Name error. Oh.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Something.
Amazing. Fascinating. No, they call it range as well. Interesting. Okay. So the question really, okay. So my next question is, do we actually need the WebDriver word there?
We could get rid of WebDriver. I kind of like WebDriver because that's like the protocol that we're using is the WebDriver protocol. And so might be some people who come from I was using Java or Selenium or whatever other framework that uses uses WebDriver in some other programming environment, and they see the word WebDriver and they're like, oh, I know exactly what this is.
But there's no other way. What's the way to drive? I mean, if you have like Chromium or something, that's a thing that you could in principle call not Chrome. Is that right? I mean, in other words, there's an alternative. What else would you mean by saying external evaluate of Chrome?
I have no idea, because Chrome, for the most part, I mean, there are some command line options you can run, like headless being one of them. But I mean, as soon as the process is started, basically, it's not meant to be controlled except from this WebDriver thing, or through a user clicking and typing and GUI type things. So somebody points out in the chat that WebDriver is pretty industry standard. So I mean, there's one data point.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm concerned about this headless thing because it seems to me, what we don't want to do, if the use case for the headless one is completely different from the use case for the non-headless one, it's kind of goofy to hide all of that in some weird option, right? So I'm trying to understand what the use case is. The use case for the non-headless one is probably that you're, for example, you're scripting some demo that involves using a web page. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, something like that.
Whereas the headless one is much more, I don't know, you're trying to do some, you're trying to, what's that?
No, QA testing, like you're making sure your website looks reasonable, or I don't know, search functionality works or something like that.
Right. I really think it's different. I mean, it's kind of annoying to just type it out and let me see how horrifying it looks. WebDriver Firefox headless. And is that even the right order for it? Okay, go on. It's kind of horrifying. Probably perhaps less horrifying than to have I mean, it's less horrifying than to have this weird session options thing that for something which is really a different use case. Well, I kind of think we should do this and just list it as a separate type of, in our list of external evaluators, this is a different external evaluator. I mean, I know it's just a command line option, but go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I was just going to say, in terms of documentation, we could just have a note on, the main WebDriver Firefox page that just says, hey, if you want to run it headless, here's how you do it, and then some examples.
No,
I guess
but I don't think we should do that because I think the examples are different. I think
Okay.
if you think about what the examples are, as you say, the examples are different examples. Because one case, what's the use of the non-headless case? The non-headless case, I believe, is primarily for demos. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I basically agree.
I mean, it'd be kind of interesting. I mean, which raises the question, does one want the thing which has a funky name to be the one which is headed rather than headless?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to guess, I would say that probably the most common use case will be if someone wants to do this headless. I think headless is the more
I would think so too.
common
Right.
use case.
But then what would you call the headed version? Visible? Blah.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's weird, but
It's weird. It's very weird. Look, the fact is, the headless, no, it's horrible. The headless case,
I mean, there is a valid point that, we could just drop the WebDriver, and then I think, Firefox that's headless, Firefox visible, that shows up. That's not that terrible.
Well, but you just made an argument for why WebDriver.
Yeah, and I'm completely disregarding that, again.
Okay, let me ask this question. Is there any other way to drive Firefox other than through WebDriver?
Yeah,
as you said, there's command line.
I don't know of any. Well, the command line options don't really give you much. I mean, the command line options, there's, I think, one that I know of, and that's specifically for just generating, a web image where you give it an option that's go to this URL, capture the web page, or capture an image of it, save it somewhere, and then exit. That's literally.
So that would be a way to do this. I didn't know there was a command line. I had no idea that web browsers had that command line option these days. So in other words, that is the thing that one could use for, this web page image thing.
Yeah, it could be done, completely independently of all this stuff. But I would suggest not doing that because there's a lot of machinery that's in here to find your Firefox and, run the arguments and things like that. That this is going to give you the same thing, and it's easier and unified code base and things.
Okay. Notice that we've called it Node.js, not JavaScript, in one of our other, one of our other external evaluators.
Very true.
And that is a, implementation level thing. Now, I don't actually, what does that mean for this humph? What should we do here? WebDriver or oh, we've got some comments on this is very useful. Thank you, guys. Yeah, someone's pointing out, Ride EB is pointing out at some point you may need to change the underlying API from WebDriver to something else. Yes. Well, okay, the issue is the WebDriver API hidden from Wolfram Language user? Because I'm concerned that some of the things that we're offering are, I mean, like, for example, is it the case that the actual commands that we offer are the same between Chrome and Firefox?
Yeah. The command set is the same. The implementation is almost exactly the same, minus a few little nitpicky things that are differences between the WebDriver implementation for these different browsers.
But by the way, this works on all platforms, right?
Yeah, Windows, Linux, Mac. Yep.
Okay.
Maybe not Raspberry Pi. Actually, I think it should work on some of them, but not all of them. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, Michael Hale is saying, it's a well-known protocol, but I certainly wish I could have set up an automated app UI doing UI testing a while ago without ever having to learn the word. Oh, windowed. That's an interesting name for headed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, hold on. Let's think about this for a second. I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards just saying Firefox and Chrome.
Yeah.
Because
I
think
it's reasonable.
I'm worried. Okay. How long has WebDriver been around?
I mean, so the protocol I don't think is even finished yet.
Great. Well, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like proposal. I don't think it's been approved yet. Yeah.
Oh, so
candidate recommendation. I mean, it's used very, very heavily. I think it's highly unlikely that it's just going to fall to the dust at some point. But it is not like an official thing yet.
Well, on the other hand, the fact that there's a whole shtick, this is more analogous. Okay, the only thing that's weird here. Okay, let me make a further comment. So, WebDriver itself is a function-based interface, if I'm understanding correctly. There's no WebDriver language, so to speak. Unlike, for example, when we call Python, where we are dealing with the Python language, or is there? Well, what is all of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, there kind of is a language. I mean, it's an API. It's like a protocol. Let me find an example. Yeah, so there's all these like posts, right? You post a session, or get session back URL, timeouts, forward, etc., etc. So there is kind of a language. I mean, it's just an API of things that you're calling versus over.
No, I understand, but the analogous thing to saying no. Okay, we've got a bit of a confusion here because, if you say Python, what you expect to give in the string is a bunch of Python code.
Yep.
Right? Here, these are HTTP requests, basically.
Yes.
Are they actually, they're so, in some weird sense, the thing you would expect to do here is give a list of HTTP requests. And you'd be like feeding this creature its list of symbolic HTTP requests. And
kind of. Yeah.
Why am I reminded of logo turtle commands? Okay. But then what we're doing is translating those into this is so complicated. Okay, show me again the external evaluate thing that we actually are using here. So your proposal is that what we're doing, okay, so the idea that we had before was that normally in a language like Python, for example, that second argument would just be a string, the language string, so to speak.
Yep.
Whereas here, what we're doing is we're saying there is this thing that is our interpretation of those commands from, see, I mean, there's an argument that we should at least support the raw commands that you saw in that list from that WebDriver documentation, because that would be the analog of supporting a raw Python command there.
Yeah.
And the point then is that those are, I mean, arguably, somewhat bizarrely, you could actually have as a second argument to the external evaluate an HTTP request.
Yeah.
Because that would package. I mean, do those things need other stuff in them other than a single sort of payload?
I mean, the payload can sometimes be, I guess, a little complicated, but no,
like what?
It's not a lot.
I mean, it can be one of those external object things.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like references to some random thing like IDs.
But it can be multiple things, for example. Can it be? I mean, what can you even put in in a post request? You can put all sorts of junk.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all kind of like JSON basically, and so this is an example of what I guess you could do with Firefox or something, and I mean. It's some kind of JSON object, and so I don't think it's totally unreasonable that this HTTP request, and you have your body goes to
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, look, okay. What this is making me think is that ultimately, this is such a weird thing because okay, we've never had, yeah, I mean,
The other thing we could do, and this would be a lot more work, and so this is not going to 11.3, is we could just say no to the whole external evaluate framework, and we could just have individual functions for all of these things, and
I was thinking about something like that. I mean, I was thinking about something where we have a framework for basically just manipulating web pages. I mean, it's very similar to what we're doing, for example, for the, some of the stuff like mail handling or something. You're manipulating some.
right.
I mean, that's probably what we should ultimately do. All right. Okay. Let's do the following. Okay. Let's leave. I mean, this is like defensive design here. This is all experimental stuff anyway. Let's leave. Okay. So RightEB asks on this on the chat, is this analogous to linear algebra in the LAPACK package or JDBC drivers in database link? Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, this is the low-level implementation.
Yeah, I mean, our node has some of this stuff already on GitHub.
Right, but we're packaging it in a way that's more
right.
More convenient. Okay, so look, here's what I think we should do. I think we should go ahead and call it WebDriver-Firefox, and then WebDriver-Firefox-headless. And
okay,
I think then we should use these, we should use these sort of cooked commands here that are our mapping of the WebDriver standard. Okay. What we should expect to do once we have this all up and running is to try and figure out whether we want to have a framework more specific to web page manipulation. Not inconsistent with this, but this will allow us to experiment with that by calling it the WebDriver thing. We are since it is in fact, yeah. I mean, in some sense, the fact that it's Chrome or Firefox is sort of irrelevant, except that in the headless case, it's kind of irrelevant. Who cares at some level? Well, maybe you do care because maybe it renders fonts differently or something like this, and that's important for QA purposes.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, I think that is something useful for QA, and I think QA is going to be a real big usage of this.
Yes, yes. I mean, I know our QA department has been doing things like this for decades, basically. But I think that they will be early users of a better packaged version of this.
So I guess one thing that I figured out specifically this function is going to crash, but what I was trying to show you is that when we have, maybe I have a version of it. No, I don't have. So this data set that find external evaluators returns is going to get gigantic. For example, here I mean, there's a lot of Python here, but if we're going to have Node.js and Python, and then
pit.
Exactly. Yes, there's going to be a whole bunch of these, and so I wanted to try and see.
What's your point? That there are a bunch of different random versions of Python there?
No, my point was that if we keep adding all of these slightly different versions of a system, this data set is going to have a bunch of different system keys here. So there'll be Python, Python-NumPy, there'll be WebDriver-Firefox, WebDriver-Firefox.
Yeah, well, that's why people will. Okay, fine, but it gets huge. People will.
Okay.
It has its own ways of dealing with that. It'll paginate. It's fine. I mean, so there's lots of stuff. You just do open close. It's like you're listing all your files or something. Could be lots of.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't bother me too much.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I mean, yeah. I was just seeing what your opinion was on that. But
no, I don't think there's an issue with that.
Okay.
Data set is set up to deal with long things. Okay. So anything else that we need to figure out right now? I should get going in a few minutes here.
I think we'll need another meeting once once the new docs team is done making that external evaluate system.
Right. Are there any other cases though? I mean, so we've got external object that you're going to just start using here, even though we're not really ready with it, but it'll be okay. And anything else you need to use here? I mean, it's the first time you're getting back a pointer. What happens? Why can't you get back pointers from? I mean, what happens when you are returning some Python pointer-like object?
So here, I'll show you exactly what happens. I'll do. So this
great
is a failure object, but we can do string, and you just get this. It doesn't turn into anything else. But that is the string form of the function as Python reports it.
But that's a pointer. That's a raw memory pointer, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is a raw memory pointer is what it is.
So could you ever feed that in this session, in that Python session, you could in principle feed that back in? So ultimately, there could be a version of that is an external object that invalidates after this, it uses the session ID, the UUID for that Python session, right? And so it knows it's only valid for that session, and then it could perfectly happily be fed back in again.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, I guess what I'm getting tripped up on is that I don't know if Python actually will let you do that. Other languages probably do let you just dereference pointers like that.
Well, sure.
I don't remember.
C or something, you just go star.
Yeah, sure.
And it'll crash or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Python doesn't let you do that. But in principle, you could, you could feed it back in.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else we need to figure out right now?
I guess quick question. So if I'm going to do this, do you want this import format or no?
Oh yeah. I mean, if we look, by the way, Michael Hale is pointing out on our live stream, it's absolutely, but people try and take a picture of a web page, they shouldn't have to know anything related to WebDriver. I 100% agree.
And I think this would be a reasonable compromise for that. It's just, we document the web image, I guess format, and they just search web image. They see the format.
I think it's a little weird. I think we probably want to. I think we want a function to do that, and I don't yet 100% know what it should be. I'm guessing it's web image, but it may need some tentacles. For example. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, as soon as people have that, they're going to say, can't I, before I take the image, can't I scroll down? Right?
True.
And then they're going to be thrown into having various kinds of, then they're going to be thrown into a full web page manipulation framework. Or, can't I enter this in the, I mean, many web pages, like, you go to Wolfram Alpha or something, you can just put stuff in the URL line to,
to actually perform
in the query string, right? But
not every site is like that. You might need to click on it or do some other weird graphical user interface thing, and that's what somebody wants.
What this suggests, look, ultimately the right answer here, and I don't know, this is a general problem that we have. Okay, just to editorialize for a moment. There are a bunch of these situations in which we are trying to represent an external language or language-like thing symbolically. So, for example, a case where this has come up recently is the Ethereum virtual machine. Right? How do we represent the commands of the Ethereum virtual machine? And I think we're going to represent them by some kind of external command wrapper that says what type of, that it's for the Ethereum virtual machine. But this is a bit like that, except that there isn't, it is a set of command, function-like things, except it's not really a language. I mean, somebody could make a language, like we could make a language that is a web page manipulation language. And if we're going to do that, it should be sort of full symbolic. Yeah, I mean, it does seem to make quite a bit of sense to me. The only thing that is frustrating about it is that, unlike most of what we do, where you are operating on a symbolic expression that you're kind of holding yourself, and where you are sort of more or less immutably operating on things and returning stuff. In the case of a web page, it's like a number of things we're doing recently, like the mail handling stuff, where you've got this thing out there and you're poking at it, like, more like sort of traditional object-oriented programming stuff. And it's kind of a shame that we can't think that we have, and I'm just editorializing here, but that we can't think we have essentially a symbolic representation of the web page that we are,
poking at.
Right, that we're poking at and doing things just like we would normally do. I mean, it's sort of interesting. We were just working on, just today actually, the end of the mail handling business. Okay, and what's kind of interesting there is that when you like have a mail folder, what you're bringing in are basically a bunch of symbolic objects that represent mail items that are mail messages. And you can, manipulate that, and you can do selections on that and things like this. Okay, anyway, I think we've got a direction for what we need to do for this, 11th hour, 11.3 thing. Let's go ahead and do it in this slightly defensive way, expecting that we will make it less defensive as we understand more about how to make a proper symbolic representation for web pages. Sound reasonable? And
okay, that sounds fine.
Okay, okay, if you can unshare, and I will save out. I have stuff to save out, right, from earlier in the session.
I don't think so, because I mean, I just sent you the example notebook that I made for the docs team.
No. I meant I have stuff to save out from the stuff we did on network packet cap.
Oh yes. Sorry, on CVS. Yes,
I'm
the
doing
network
that right now. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the comments from the live stream, and thank you, Ian and Carla, and so on. And we'll look at this one more time, and look forward to seeing it.
Okay.
All right. See you later.
Okay. Thank you.